You are now listening to The Spearsy Spin with your host, Mike Spears.
Hi folks, and welcome to The Spearsy Spin, May 8th, 2017. Well, before we talk about the people in your neighborhood, I want to talk about our support partners, which is Audionautics, who have replaced our original theme music with a new and updated theme. And I know you heard it already because you're listening to the show. Outstanding is the only thing I can say about these folks. Outstanding. You know, you can get more information on Audionautics because they're always in the credits of our show. Just follow the prompts and you can go find out more information about them. You know, these people are super, and they are unbelievably talented. Again, Audionautics. So, who are the people in your neighborhood? Well, Joseph Carroll from the Gallop Poll, he's the assistant editor, by the way, he asked that exact question not too long ago, and we're going to use some of his Gallop Poll information here tonight. Now, we start off with different regions of the United States, and we find that the South reports the highest proportion of blacks, while the West reports the highest number of Hispanics and recent immigrants. Now, Gallup's annual update on race relations suggests that Americans generally live in areas populated with people from their own racial or ethnic backgrounds. More than 8 in 10 non-Hispanic whites say they live in areas where there are many whites, while at least 6 in 10 blacks and Hispanics say many people of their respective backgrounds live in their neighborhoods. Few whites, blacks, or Hispanics say they live in areas highly populated by recent immigrants or Asians. Now, racial differences. The poll conducted a while back asked Americans how many people of various races and ethnic backgrounds lived in their areas. Many? Some? Only a few? None? Well, the results to this question among non-Hispanic whites, blacks, and Hispanics suggest that these different groups tend to live in areas with relatively few of those from different backgrounds. Now, there's 3 main conclusions here. Non-Hispanic whites are most likely to live in areas in which there's a large number of their own race. 86% live in areas in which there are many whites. Now, by contrast, only 66% of blacks live in areas in which there are many blacks, and only 61% of Hispanics live in areas in which there are many Hispanics. Now, if you look at this a little bit differently, this data suggests that a third or more of blacks and Hispanics are living in areas in which, their race or ethnic group is in the decided minority. Whites generally tend to live in areas in which there are less likely to be substantial concentrations of blacks and Hispanics. That's what this shows. But only about 1 in 3 non-Hispanic whites say that there are many blacks or Hispanics in their neighborhoods. And by way of contrast, 45% of blacks and 52% of Hispanics say there are many whites in their neighborhoods. Only a relatively small percentage of members of all 3 of these groups say that there are many Asians or recent immigrants in their neighborhoods. The highest concentration of recent immigrants exists in Hispanic neighborhoods. So now we have to talk about regional differences. And when we're looking at these results among all U.S. adults, the data, it does show some vast differences by regions across the country. Now, for instance, in the South, respondents tend to say there are many blacks, while in the West, areas tend to be highly populated by Hispanics and recent immigrants. Residents in the West are also slightly less likely than people elsewhere to say there are many whites living around them. Roughly 8 in 10 Americans living in the East, Midwest, and South say there are many whites in their neighborhoods. And nearly half of those living in the South say there are many blacks in their areas. This compares with about a third of those in the East. A majority of people living in the West say there are many Hispanics in their areas. This percentage is much lower in the South and even lower in the Midwest. A third of respondents in the West said there are many recent immigrants in their areas.
Remove the jobs, break the schools, pull back the police. Let the streets flood with drugs. Let violent gangs recruit child soldiers and terrorize neighborhoods. Don't prosecute gun crimes. And when the media looks you in the eye after another bloody weekend in a major American city, call for more gun control. If our politicians are truly using the carnage they refuse to stop to attack the rights of honest, hardworking Americans caught in living hell, then they are guilty of the most despicable form of racism imaginable. What has been allowed to happen in our inner cities is an absolute disgrace. If the same epidemic of poverty, gang violence, and broken schools poison the neighborhoods of the nation's political class, you'd better believe they'd be talking about real solutions, not gun control. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Tell your friends and neighbors about the Spearsy Spin.
Hi folks. Times we live in today are scary. Religious freedoms under fire. Racial divide never more evident. Political powers fighting. Foreign countries looking to exploit our country. News media reporting unfair on issues. Folks searching out the truth. I listen to the news, then I listen to the Spearsy Spin. Mike Spears has experience, education, determination, and grit to get what's going on in our country. Listen to Mike Monday through Friday. I'll listen. Hope you'll be listening too.
Who are the people in your neighborhood? In your neighborhood? In your neighborhood? Say, who are the people in your neighborhood? The people that you meet each day.
The census showed that 24% of Western residents are Hispanic. Now, there are differences by household income levels. And what are they? Well, Gallop also finds differences by household income. These are Americans living in higher income households are somewhat more likely than are those living in lower income households to say there are many Asians in their area. The reported concentration of whites is much greater among those living in the middle and upper income households than those in lower income households. For instance, they break down the income stature here into 5 categories. Now, for the folks making less than $30,000 a year here in the U.S., 60% of them are white, 37% are black, 40% Hispanic, 9% Asian, and 20% recent immigrants. Now, for those who are making up to $74,000 a year, 81% are white, 31% are black, 35% Hispanic, 9% Asian, and 15% recent immigrants. Now, for the folks who are making $75,000 or more per year, here's how it breaks down. 85% are white, 32% are black, 28% Hispanic, 19% Asian, and 18% recent immigrants. So as you can see, the table shows that about 85% of adults earning $75,000 per year or more say there are more whites living in their area. 4 in 10 adults earning less than $30,000 a year say there are many Hispanics in their areas. So what's the bottom line? I mean, when you put all this stuff together, what does it mean? Well, take a look. This data suggests that Americans tend to live in neighborhoods largely populated by people of similar racial or ethnic backgrounds. 86% of non-Hispanic whites, 66% of blacks, and 61% of Hispanics report living in areas where there are many people from their own backgrounds. These results also show the South reports the highest proportion of blacks, while the West reports the highest number of Hispanics and recent immigrants. Now, these results are based off from telephone interviews with 2,264 adults. That would be, the way it breaks down would be 807 non-Hispanic whites, 802 blacks, 511 Hispanics, out of which 181 were interviewed in Spanish. Okay, so that's all from the Gallop poll from just a few years ago. And so we did that so that we could now move on with our other part of the show, which is who are the people in your neighborhood? And let me tell you what I mean by that. Take a look at this. Now, in the 20s through the 70s, most everyone in smaller communities knew their neighbors and their children and where they worked and went to school, where they went to college, and the dad or mom's profession. Today, it's a much different story. Have humans become more reclusive of late? Well, in my own opinion, I have to say yes. The issues? Many. First and probably foremost is the division of the family unit as a whole. It's an everyday accepted fact to see single, separated, divorced women and men living alone and raising children. Within this concept, these folks appear to keep to themselves and immediate family, but we're seeing fewer and fewer friends, well, except, of course, on Facebook or Twitter or on their phones. Now, this seems to be the constant with the millennials. The millennials seem to be very comfortable communicating by texting. So, why is it bad that you don't know your neighbors? Well, let's start with the immigration issue. While I think a good amount of Americans feel that illegal aliens need to be dealt with, I also believe that most Americans also feel that for those here illegally that have been working, taking care of their family and their homes, I believe that there should be a faster track to citizenship rather than deportation. But I also believe that these same Americans, as well as myself, feel that illegal immigrants that are here who rape, murder, run drugs, solicit prostitution, sell children into sex slavery, and beat up and rob folks should not be allowed here in the United States at all. Now, with that said, we repeat the title of today's show. Who are the people in your neighborhood? Regardless of your immigration status, it's time for you to take inventory of who or what is living in your neighborhood. Do not be afraid to tell your local or state authorities about gang members, rapists, underage forced brothels, meth labs, illegal gun sellers, murder for hire, individuals, or gangs. Now, there's always going to be criminals who are running from the law, and this does concern you because they can turn violent when faced with incarceration concerns. In some of our shows from the past, we've already discussed countless episodes of illegal aliens doing unthinkable crimes. But it is not just the illegal aliens. It is also a lot of folks that were born and raised right here in the USA. These folks need to be reported as well. There's never been a better time or a more urgent need to find out who are the people in your neighborhood? That's what we think. We'd like to know what you think. So please visit us at thespearsyspin.blogspot.com and let us know what you think of today's show or any of our shows. Be professional. You never know what you write might show up on one of our upcoming shows. Well, thanks everybody for listening and for all your kind words and your constant support. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Now, there's only one world, and we all have to live on it. So it's better to know who's who on this orbiting sphere.
Because the grocer is a person in your neighborhood.
In your neighborhood.
He's in your neighborhood.
The grocer is a person in your neighborhood. A person that you meet each day.
Well, nice to see you. Oh, I know who you are.
Yeah, hi, Bob.
You're the doctor, right?
Yeah. Oh, a doctor works the whole day long to keep you feeling well and strong. But if by chance you're feeling sick, I'll try to make you well real quick.